unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Oswald, and you're listening.
This is Hudson Hammond, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Dr. J Radio Live. I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the City of Angels. As you know, we are internationally syndicated via late night in the Midlands in the U.S. and deprogrammed radio in the United Kingdom. Today, we have a very special show for you today because you're going to get three, not one, not two, but three different guests. Besides us bringing you all sorts of topics, including politics, celebrities, paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, and everything like that. Today, you're going to get a little bit of both with the very first guest. I don't want to waste too much time since we do have a limited time with him. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. KANE HODDER onto the show. KANE, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Now, let's talk about, before we go into paranormal, what you did on the big screen. Who were you?
Okay,
who did you portray?
Yes, I played the character Jason in 4 of the Friday the 13th films. I always add that I'm the only person to play the character more than one time. I did parts 7, 8, 9, and Jason X. And I also stunt coordinated most of those films as well. Then I did 4 movies as a character called Victor Crowley from the Hatchet films. All 4 of those movies that exist were me playing the character. So another guy in a heavy makeup killing everyone. So then those were more recent than the Friday the 13th that I did. Also played several other monsters and killers, a couple of which were real serial killers. Played Dennis Rader in a movie called BTK, played Ed Gein in a movie called That. So the fact that I've played so many killers kind of just seems to be a natural thing for me. I don't know. I've been a stuntman for 41 years. Worked in a lot of big action films along the years, like Demolition Man, Gone in 60 Seconds, Enemy of the State, Lethal Weapon 3. Did a few movies with Steven Seagal, Daredevil, Monster, 7. All kinds of fun movies, and I always loved doing the stunts. So I still coordinate films that I work in, typically, but that's basically in a nutshell.
One of the, I'm a skydiver. This is a very biased question. One of the skydivers I jump with is a stuntman. By any chance, have you ever jumped?
No, I have not. I always was intrigued by the idea, but I never did it because there's not a lot of call for it in film. And, the guys that do jump typically are the guys with the cameras and, stuff like that. So there's not a big demand. So it never was something I really chased after, but it always was interesting to me. Who is the stunt guy? Would I know him?
His first name is Scott. I don't recall his last name off the top of my head. He recently got elected into the USPA, which is the United States Parachute Association, as one of the directors for the Southwest region, also known as the Pacific. Yeah. He does a lot of the films. And when you mention the demand for skydivers in films, it's very a select few that are always being the same people. I know that for a fact because one of the drop zones I go to has pictures of every single celebrity or look-alike of every time they film something. Now, going back to your long history of being involved in films, this is going to be sort of hard to to decide the answer on, but of all the roles you portrayed, which one of the films did you feel in your own heart came out the way you wanted it to be the most? Because they were all great to me.
Yeah, I mean, that is a tough question because I've done, I think, 160 films over my career. So it's a little bit tough to try and pinpoint any. I mean, one of the ones I was most proud of was Monster, because I was the stunt coordinator and Charlize Theron won an Oscar for it. And I played the cop that arrested her at the end of the movie. So that was pretty exciting. And obviously playing Jason is something that's right at the top of the list, because as a stunt person, you're used to being in the background, excuse me. And, so you don't get a lot of notoriety, but then all of a sudden you play a character like Jason and everything changes. So that would have to be at the top, but there's so many films that I was really proud to be a part of. I mean, I worked with, so many different people that I used to admire, and all of a sudden now I'm working hand in hand with them. So it's a pretty amazing feeling.
Let me give you a little admission. When I was young, the very first poster I had was a Freddy Krueger, and the very second poster I had was Jason Voorhees, the one where he had his mask lifted up and you could see his little gory face. I am sure that shocked the heck out of my family and parents, wondering what the heck is a 5-6-year-old doing with this, because this goes back to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, these were the kinds of movies I liked then, and of course was never scared of. And obviously this carries all the way through into my adulthood. Now, throughout your film, let me ask you a question. You're involved in a paranormal, and I'm going to ask you about the name of it in a second, but did you start to get involved because of what you were doing, or is it something that you already had a passion thinking about long before you got involved into your professional career?
Well, it was something that always interested me, but it wasn't until I was on set with Rick, and I like to tell the story because he tells it so well about how we decided to form a group. We were doing a movie at a prison, Mansfield Prison, which is pretty well known for paranormal stuff. And I'd like you to ask him about that moment where we decided, okay, we both have this interest, we're going to form a group. And I just think it's interesting the way he tells the story.
Oh, I absolutely will. Now, let's talk about the group and what the functions of it are.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what's interesting about the group is that everyone that's in the group has something to do with making horror films. So it's either actors or directors or makeup effects people or, and any number of different positions, but it's always somebody that does horror films. So we thought that would be an interesting group of people to go ghost hunting, because we typically make a living doing things that scare other people. So now we thought we would go out and see if something can scare us. And, it's a fascinating world, the paranormal world. And I'm always very, very careful to not let my imagination go crazy if something small happens. I don't want to make it into something more than it really was, because I think that factor exists in the paranormal community where people have something small happen and almost subconsciously let it be built into something more than it really was. And I don't even think they know they're doing it sometimes. So I'm very, very, very careful about not letting that happen, because I want to, if I have a story to tell, I want to be convinced that it couldn't have been something natural.
You want it to be accurate.
And so,
yes.
Right. And not exaggerated. Because if there's anything that happens that could have been created by something else, something natural, then it's hard for me to get excited about it.
How do the rest of your colleagues in the movie industry and I guess within celebrities feel about paranormal activity? I mean, do they, most of them, do they look down at you or look at you and say, oh, he believes in ghosts, or or this person believes that we are being visited by ETs or something like that? Because I do know across the rest of the population, depending on where you are and depending on the year it was, some people really mock other people. But I would hope that now the year we're in, I mean, considering it's almost Halloween of 2018, I would hope that people would have more of an open mind. Do you get sort of an open mind when you talk to other colleagues when you're on set between shoots about maybe some ghost hunting adventures you went through?
Well, I mean, I guess I haven't really encountered much of the skepticism from people around me. Maybe once in a while somebody will say, I don't believe in that stuff. But most often people are more intrigued by it, at least that they're willing to consider that kind of stuff could exist. So, I don't, and maybe they're just afraid to tell me themselves that they don't believe in it because they're, afraid of my reaction. I don't know. But who knows? It's just that I really don't have to deal with it too much.
Well, what I've noticed is there's two types of people, or more than that, but specifically the people that are so close-minded, they say it's impossible. There is nothing but what we see. Once we die, we're just gone. How can there be ghosts? How can we be visited? I mean, we're not seeing these little gray men or green men everybody are talking about on a daily basis. So I have a feeling the inclination is, when you say intrigued, these people possibly could be closeted paranormal lovers, or at least you may be introducing them to that. Or on the other hand, I think it's a very small group of people that truly are afraid of your reaction in that sense, because those staunch people that say, hey, this does not happen, this cannot be real, I wouldn't think that they would hold back in saying that.
Right. But, it strikes me as fairly ignorant to say that for someone to say that they know for a fact that nothing exists. I mean, that's asinine to say. You haven't been dead, so how do you profess to know exactly what happens after your death?
That's right.
I mean, it's pretty ignorant to be so pompous about an attitude of disbelief. If anything, say, I don't know if I believe in it, but who knows? Nobody knows for sure unless you're there. So I find it pretty frustrating when somebody professes to know all of that when they couldn't possibly really know it. Just say that you don't believe in it, but don't try to tell me that it doesn't exist. You don't know that.
Yes. Agreed. I'm going to try to get as much out of you in the next 14 minutes since I know you do have to go, and we'll have to get people enticed enough so we can bring you back and everybody will have a thirst to hear more of you. Let's talk about some of the locations that you've been ghost hunting at. What's the
Well,
what are the ones that stick out the most in your head?
well, I mean, these are well-known ones, but the one that happens to be my favorite is Waverly Hills Hospitals, because we've been there several times, and the owners are great, and they keep the property, maintained well and conducive to investigations and stuff. So that's probably my favorite. But then there's so many others that we've been to. Mansfield Prison, Sloss Furnaces. I've been to the Stanley Hotel. Even the ones that are not as well known are really fun to investigate. I was just in Salem, Massachusetts last weekend, and that's got a pretty good history. And I just enjoy going to a place that has any kind of history, whether it's well known or not. And if it has anything interesting or it's a different type of location or something, that's what I end up enjoying the most.
Have you ever seen any aberrations or any ghostly activity?
Like I said, I am very careful to not get too excited. I really can't say I've seen an apparition. I did encounter my best story is from Waverly, and it was certainly noise and footsteps right near me in the pitch black, and no one was there. So that was as close as I can get to saying something was paranormal, because I can't think of any other possible explanation for that particular incident.
Very good answer, and that's the best way to cover all the bases. That way you, like you said, you don't want to say something without having the concrete proof. Now, when you do go ghost hunting, I'm assuming you bring along equipment such as, something to record EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, and other things like that. What sort of equipment do you carry when you go?
Well, this is something that more a good question for Rick, because he brings far more equipment than me. I don't rely on too much equipment myself. I want to experience something personal. So I don't want to get excited about some meter, registering something if I can't see it or feel it. That doesn't do anything for me. I always bring cameras, but as far as the other devices, Rick is more into those things, because I want my experience to be personal, not based on the results of a machine. If that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely does. Now, you mentioned camera. I know you told us the story about these footsteps near you in the dark, which amongst alone that's an anomaly. But with your camera, have you ever caught anything on film?
I have not with my cameras that I've taken with me. Nothing that I would say is good enough to talk about. I'm hoping. I mean, everybody always jokes saying that, the spirits and ghosts are afraid of you, so they don't show up when you're around. And that's just, a joke. But it does, in fact, happen more often than would be by chance, where we'll be somewhere particular Sloss Furnace, we were in the death tunnel or whatever. I think it's called the death tunnel. And nothing was going on. And I said, watch, I'm going to walk down to the other end of the tunnel by myself, and something will happen when I'm gone. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I was way down at the end. All of a sudden, where the group was, the meters started going crazy, and somebody felt like they got shoved. So,
Now,
it's joking about saying the ghosts are afraid of me, but they do seem to always avoid doing anything when I'm around for whatever reason.
when it comes to the talk of paranormal, do you believe, or at least have an open mind about other things, such as us being visited from ETs? I mean, for instance, the DoD, not even a year ago, about 10 months, maybe 11 months ago, released some footage that they had Navy pilots capturing these objects that were not very aerodynamic. They were violating our known laws of physics, and so on and so forth. What do you think is going on with that? Do you? Some people say, "Hey, that's just us testing our very advanced military new propulsion and new equipment." Other people say, "Well, hey, that's another indicator that we are never alone, because this is such a vast universe, or multiverse, as
Right.
many people say it."
Well, for sure. And once again, it's ridiculous for somebody to say that it does not exist, because there's no way that someone could know that. So I keep an open mind to everything. I sometimes term myself, and I think it's fairly accurate, as an open-minded skeptic. I'm very careful to not exaggerate things, which brings in the skepticism. Sometimes people inadvertently make things more than they are, so I'm very careful about that. So that's why I say skeptic. But I'm open-minded enough to realize that there could be any number of things out there that we don't know about. So, I do feel that any of those things could exist.
Now, a fair amount of skepticism is very healthy, especially when you have an open mind, because unfortunately there are these people that pull off hoaxes and other things like that, or some people may
Right.
see something that is conventional and all of a sudden believe it's not, and so that's a very good thing. Now let me ask you this, since we are getting near the end of time. Within the film industry, of all the 160 films that you've been involved with, were there any other celebrities or people behind the cameras that have had such an intense interest in the paranormal that may have gone ghost hunting with you?
Nobody that comes to mind, because those people that did express any kind of interest decided to become a part of our group. There's plenty of actors and actresses within our group that expressed interest. So we said, "Hey, why don't you join us? And we'll go, investigate together." So I've run across a lot of pretty well-known actors that believe there is something out there, and not so much that they investigate or anything, but I kind of, when I talk to them about it, they kind of make it a point to say that they don't really want it talked about. So there's been a number of really big actors I've worked with that expressed interest, but I don't feel like it's my place to mention names.
Totally understood. And of course, obviously, because if you did, you'd out them. And I would think that someone who is such a public figure, and some of these, I would think that if they had that attached to them, then they may not get the roles they want, because some of the producers may be really staunch skeptics and believe that, hey, this person is not right in the head because there's no possibility we are, that there's anything else going on. So I'm going to use this last 3.5 minutes or so to talk to you about, again, what we started with, the film industry. What's next for you?
Well, I think you probably know, or maybe you don't know, that my documentary about my life was just released and getting really good, tremendous reviews. It's called To Hell and Back, the KANE HODDER story. So I would hope people would take a look at that. I did a movie this summer with the Impractical Jokers, because we're all friends, and one of them was in the last Hatchet movie because he's a horror fan. So Brian Quinn was asked me if I would do their movie with them as far as stunt coordinator, and I play a character in it too. So there's that coming up. You probably know I did all the motion capture for Jason in the Friday the 13th video game. That is very popular right now, and so every movement in every version of Jason within the game was done by me. It took us almost 2 years to complete all the motion capture. So very, very proud, and I felt honored that they would select me to do the motion capture. And there's lots of other good stuff coming up in the future.
Well, who better to select than the one person who's portrayed Jason Voorhees the most and did the best job, so I couldn't imagine anyone else. And you brought up a very big and good point. The fact that celebrities are now involved in video games a lot more than 20 years ago, because now the technology with video games is so advanced. I mean, I've seen some commercials of, for instance, one of these NBA games, and doing a double take, I was like, is that a real game or is that just a video game? I couldn't tell the difference. So I could only imagine where we're going to go years from now. And I'm pretty sure for a fact they're going to follow up with having you on again. Now, I do know you have to get off for this conference call, so I'm going to give you a quick chance to say any final statement you may have, whether it be about your paranormal group or anything you want to say, Mr. Hodder.
Well, I mean, I was unceremoniously replaced as Jason after doing 4 films in a row. So I talked to a lot of fans, and they tell me they would love to see me come back, and I would absolutely welcome the chance to play Jason one more time. The next movie would be the 13th movie, and what better time to bring me back for a few more acts of violence than on the 13th film. So that's what I would say. Let's do that.
Friday the 13th, number 13. That's very fantastic, and that would be very, very fitting, Kane. I honestly can't wait, and I implore everybody out there listening to do what you can to reach out or to submit requests that when this film is being casted for, ask for the one and only KANE HODDER. Kane, it's been a true pleasure, and next time we'll do this for a lot longer. Thanks again for joining us.
Okay, well, I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Okay. See ya.